Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to begin to solve quadratics by graphing. The essential question for us in this section is, how do we solve quadratic equations by graphing? First of all, quadratic equations are written in the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. This is what we refer to as standard form. Now, when you are graphing a quadratic equation, the graph of a quadratic equation is going to be what we call a parabola. In other words, it's a U shape. It either opens up or it opens down. In order to solve this, you have to find what we call the solutions. The point or points at which the parabola crosses the x-axis are called the solutions. They are also referred to as the roots, or they may even be called the zeros of the solution. So the x-intercepts are the same as the solutions. The roots are what we refer to sometimes as the zeros. In order to find the solutions of a quadratic by graphing, you can look at the solutions by looking at the graphs. When you are graphing quadratics and looking for the solutions, there are three types of solutions, three things that can happen. So there are three types of solutions. The first thing that can happen is your parabola can cross the x-intercept twice, and therefore you will have two x-intercepts, so you will have two solutions. A second thing that might happen when you're graphing is your parabola will only touch the x-intercept once, and therefore you will have one x-intercept or one solution. And finally, the third thing that can happen when you're graphing a quadratic is your parabola may not touch the x-intercept at all, and therefore you have zero intercepts or zero solutions. So keep that in mind as you're working. Now we're going to go to try some examples. If you look at the top of your paper, I wrote solving quadratic equations by graphing. First, your quadratic equation has to be written in what's called standard form and equal to 0. So if you'll look, it says solve negative x squared plus 8x minus 12 equals 0 by graphing. So we have the quadratic negative x squared plus 8x minus 12 equals 0. And our quadratic is in standard form. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, so we can skip step 2. We can skip step 1, and we can go straight to step 2 where it says change the isolated 0 to the variable y. So in other words, we're going to have negative x squared plus 8x minus 12, and instead of 0, we're going to put the variable y. Now we can graph the function, and we're going to use our graphing calculator to help us. So if you'll go to your calculator and turn it on, we're going to go to New Document. And again, remember, if it asks you to save, please check No. Since we're graphing, we're going to Add Graph. And we're going to type in our equation, our quadratic equation, exactly the way it looks. So it says f of x, and we're going to type in negative x squared plus 8x minus 12. And and we're going to hit enter. And you get a parabola, which is a U shape. Now, what we want to do is we want to graph it by hand for right now. There will be times where I just let you just go straight from the calculator. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a table, and we're going to pick a minimum of 5 points. Did everybody hear that? We want a minimum of 5 points. And you want to make sure that you pick points on both sides of your parabola. Because if you look, here's your parabola. So I need points on the left and I need points on the right. If you remember, to get to the table, you do Control T. And so I'm just going to start with, I'm going to do, oops, sorry. I'm going to do 2, 0, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 3, and finally 6, 0. So I picked 5 points. Use a minimum of 5. You can use more, but I need a minimum. So then we're going to go to our graph, and we're going to plot the points. So the first point you're going to graph is 2, 0. So I start at the origin, 2, 0. My next point is 3, 3. So I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to go right 3, up 3, and put a point. My third point is 4, 4. So I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to go, oops, sorry. I'm going to go right 4 and up 4. I made a boo-boo right there. Sorry, guys. And then I'm going to go 5, 3. So I'm going to go across 5, up 3. And finally, my fifth point is the point 6, 0. So I'm going to go right 6 and not move. I'm going to connect the points very quickly, or sketch them, and you get your U shape, which again is called the parabola. Okay, now after you have graphed, the next thing is to identify the x-intercepts. If you look, our parabola crosses the x-axis twice, therefore I have 2 x-intercepts, so therefore I have 2 solutions. And my x-intercepts are the point 2, 0 and the point 6, 0. So those are my x-intercepts. So therefore my solutions are x equals 2 and x equals 6. And that's the first step. Okay, so now we're going to go to example number 2. Example number 2 is solve x squared minus 2x equals 3 by graphing. So I'm going to write x squared minus 2x equals 3. Well, if you go back to your notes at the top, it says write the equation in standard form and have it equal to 0. As you can see, our equation is not in standard form and it's not equal to 0. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get the 3 over on the same side as the x squared and the minus 2x. To move it to the opposite side, we do the opposite. So we are going to subtract 3 from the right side of the equal sign. So we are going to subtract 3 from the left side of the equal sign. And we now have x squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. Our equation, our quadratic equation, is now in what we call standard form, and it is set equal to 0, which we must have. That's step 1. Step 2 says to take your equation, your quadratic equation, and you're going to change the isolated 0 to the variable y. So our equation is now y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. From here, we can now go, and we're going to go to our table again on our calculator. So we're going to go to our calculator. You're going to go to graph again, and you're going to type in not the original equation, x squared minus 2x equals 3, but you have to type in the equation where you solve for 0. You got it in standard form. So we're going to type in x squared minus 2x minus 3, and we're going to hit enter. And again, as you can see from the graph, you get a parabola. So we're going to go to the table, Control T, and we're going to pick some points. And remember, you need to get points on both sides of your graph. So I'm going to pick -1, 0, 0, -3, 1, 4, 2, -3, and 3, 0. And again, please remember you need a minimum of 5 points, and you need to see both sides of your parabola, on the left and on the right. We then go and we graph our function by hand. So if you look, our first point is -1, 0. The second point we're going to graph is 0, -3. Our third point is 1, -4. So we go right 1, down 4. Our next point is 2, -3. So we're going to move to the right 2 and down 3. And finally, my fifth point is a point 3, 0. So I go right 3 and I don't move because I'm on the x-axis. So I connect and it makes my parabola, my U shape. This time my parabola opens up. Again, you are to identify your x-intercepts. That is, where does your parabola cross the x-axis? And again, in this case, it crosses the x-axis twice. The first point is -1, 0. And the second point is 3, 0. So your x-intercepts are -1, 0, and 3, 0. Therefore, you have two solutions. And the solutions for our quadratic are x equals -1 and x equals +3. And that is how we solve equations, quadratic equations, by graphing.